You ever have that moment? That lightning flash where everything aligns and you realize, this is it. This is how I make them pay. Not with fists, not with shouting, but with something far more surgical. Something that hits them where it truly hurts. Today, you're going to hear how I took down a bully who thought he could get away with anything, all without ever laying a single hand on him. Because sometimes the quietest revenge is the most devastating. If you've ever felt the burning desire for true justice against someone who thought they were untouchable, then hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and prepare yourself. Because this story is about to deliver a satisfaction you won't soon forget. Back in the before times, before the internet became this sprawling beast, when it was still this wild, untamed frontier full of possibility, I was just a student at my local junior college. Life was simple, classes were interesting, and rent was well rent. To ease that burden, my girlfriend at the time, let's call her Lucy, and I decided to move in together. It made perfect sense, split the costs, build our little nest. Life was good, stable. Then came a seemingly innocent phone call. "Hey," Lucy said one evening, "I invited a friend from my English class over for game night. You cool with that?" Game night? With friends? Sounded perfect. What'd go wrong? That night, our small apartment buzzed with laughter. A couple of our usual crew were there, and Lucy's friend, Sara, blended right in. The evening unfolded like a classic college movie montage. Board game victories, snacks disappearing too fast, and conversation flowing as easily as the cheap soda we were drinking. And then, a small, unexpected twist. Turns out Sara was someone I knew from high school. We weren't best buddies, but we'd definitely seen each other around, shared a few classes, and always got along just fine. It was a nice surprise, a little thread of familiarity in a new phase of life. After that first game night, Sara became a regular fixture. Dinner invitations, more game nights, movie marathons, she was just easy to have around. A genuine friend, someone who added warmth and laughter to our little space. She even brought her boyfriend over a couple of times. We'll call him Jay. And that's where the first crack in the otherwise perfect picture appeared. Jay. From the moment he walked through the door, you could just feel it. This guy was a brick wall. He'd barely speak unless directly addressed. And even then, his answers were clipped, almost disdainful. He'd sit there, arms crossed, a permanent scowl etched onto his face, like every atom in his body was screaming, "I'd rather be anywhere else." It was painfully clear that he didn't want to be there, and frankly, no one really wanted him there either. But you know how it is. You invite him to be polite to Sara. She was our friend, after all. Fortunately, his appearances were rare. After 2 or 3 awkward evenings, he'd always find an excuse to decline, a small blessing we never openly discussed but silently appreciated. Life carried on like that for another month or 2. Sara was thriving, our little friend group was solid, and Jay was mostly a non-issue. Then, one afternoon, the phone rang. It was Lucy's phone, and I could hear a muffled distress sound from her side of the conversation. My stomach tightened. Lucy's face was etched with concern. She hung up, her eyes wide. "That was Sara," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She's crying. She needs to come over. Now." Of course, we said yes. No hesitation. We cleared the coffee table, put on some calming music, and waited. When Sara arrived, she was a wreck. Her eyes were red-rimmed and puffy, her shoulders slumped. She practically collapsed onto our couch, pulling her knees to her chest, trying to make herself small. Lucy sat beside her, rubbing her back. I just stayed quiet, letting them talk, but my blood was already starting to simmer. The story unfolded in gasps and sobs. Jay had been getting increasingly upset with Sara for spending so much time at our place. He'd grown paranoid, accusatory, completely unhinged. He accused her of cheating. She didn't specify who he thought she was cheating with me. Lucy? Both of us. It didn't matter. The thought itself was so ludicrous it was insulting. We were friends. That was it. But his accusations weren't just ridiculous. They were vile. He'd started verbally assaulting her, a torrent of disgusting names and baseless insults. The air in our living room felt thick with the echo of his nastiness, even though he wasn't there. Then came the part that made my hands clench into fists. Sara, desperate to escape his tirade, tried to walk past him to simply leave the apartment. But Jay wasn't done. He shoved her. A hard, brutal shove. She lost her footing, tripped over a coffee table, and went down hard. Lucy later confirmed the bruising. A huge, angry purple blotch across her, but in lower back where she'd hit the table. Sara swore, almost pleadingly, that he had never physically assaulted her before, that this was just an accident. But I heard the words, "he shoved her," and my blood ran cold. An accident? My gut screamed otherwise. My mind replayed the image of him, that scowl, that standoffish attitude. He didn't just not fit in. He was a ticking time bomb. You don't mess with my friends, and you definitely don't assault women. The anger that surged through me was cold, hard, and absolute. Every fiber of my being screamed for retaliation. I wanted to beat the living crap out of him. And physically, I probably could have. I'm a big guy, broad-shouldered, strong. But I'm not a violent person. I've never been in a fight in my life. And that's when a different kind of plan began to form in my mind. A more fitting kind of revenge. See, at the time, I worked as a student employee in the administration building of the junior college. It was a pretty simple job, mostly filing and data entry, but it came with a very specific, very powerful perk. I had access. I could pull up anyone's student records, their fee statements, their detailed class schedules. And the universe, it seemed, was handing me an opportunity on a silver platter. The deadline was fast approaching. The absolute last day, you could drop or add classes without penalty, without special permission. I logged into the system. My fingers flew over the keyboard, a strange mix of righteous fury and calculated calm washing over me. I looked up Jay, pulled his student ID number, got all the information I needed. The plan solidified in my mind, precise and chilling. On that final, crucial day to change schedules, I made my move. Back then, internet class scheduling wasn't a thing. You had to use dedicated enrollment phones, tucked away in little booths in the administration building itself. It was perfect. I went into one of those booths, the phone heavy in my hand, and began working the system. I canceled all of his classes, every single one, the digital equivalent of wiping his entire academic slate clean. But I wasn't just going to erase his progress. I was going to bury him under a mountain of his own making. I then went through the system and added every single class I could find that had a course fee. Not just tuition, but additional course fees. Think labs, special materials, online access codes. All those little charges that add up to a mountain of debt. Why? Because if you owed money to the school, you couldn't get copies of your transcripts, you couldn't get certifications, you couldn't get anything. It was a bureaucratic chokehold. And here's the kicker, something I hadn't even mentioned until now. Jay was a foreign student. His visa, his entire legal stay in the country, was contingent on him being enrolled for a specific number of units. Fail to meet that, and you don't just get kicked out of school. You get kicked out of the country. I wish I could tell you every detail of the fallout, every explosive moment of his realization. But I couldn't. I didn't want this traced back to me, not even a whisper. So I told no one. I didn't pull up his records again for weeks, maybe even months. I had to let the plan unfold, unseen, unheard. But fate, it seems, has a way of delivering small, delicious payoffs. Sara had broken up with Jay the night after he pushed her. She was, understandably, terrified of seeing him again, especially since they shared an English class together every Tuesday. Then came that Tuesday. Sara recounted the scene to Lucy later, and Lucy related to me, word for word. Jay was there, all right, but there was also someone new standing in the class. Standing because there weren't enough seats. The teacher, noticing the overcrowding, decided to call roll. An official, undeniable roll call. And guess who wasn't on it? He apparently tried to argue. He tried to explain. He probably got red in the face, stammered, blustered. But the teacher had the official class roster, and his name simply wasn't there. There was nothing he could do. Sara said she never saw Jay in that class again. That was it. One Tuesday, then gone. I don't know much more about what truly happened to him. Lucy and I eventually broke up, and I drifted out of touch with Sara after that. But after a while, months later, the curiosity finally got to me. I logged into the system again, my heart doing a little anxious flutter. I looked up Jay's class schedule. All the classes with course fees were gone, just as I'd planned. But more importantly, he didn't have any other classes on the books either. Nothing. Blank. I wanted to assume the best for my revenge. He was kicked out of school, and probably out of the country. I didn't try to confirm it, though. The risk wasn't worth it. Either way, Sara didn't have to suffer his presence in that class ever again. And while he probably deserved more, so much more, he was definitely inconvenienced. Seriously inconvenienced. And quite possibly, his life was completely uprooted. Sometimes, a tiny flicker of worry crosses my mind. Was I too harsh? Did I go too far? But then, I remember the bruise. I remember Sara's tears. And I remember the look on his face, the silent rage, the casual violence. And then I know, he deserved every single bit of it. Mess with me? Fine. But you do not mess with my friends. This story isn't about physical confrontation. It's about how sometimes the most precise form of justice is found not in brute force, but in clever strategy. It's about ensuring that those who inflict pain face consequences, even when no one else is watching. Because true power, sometimes, is knowing exactly where to strike without ever throwing a punch. If this tale of quiet vengeance gave you that satisfying chill, go ahead and smash that like button. Tell us in the comments below, what's the most ingenious payback you've ever heard of? And of course, make sure you're subscribed for more unforgettable stories of justice served.